everyone, and welcome to Intentional Guy. We're on the air today with Erik Allen. Erik, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show, man. Truly an honor to be
Hey,
here.
well, thank you so much for being here. Um, so, Erik, with Intentional Guy, what we're doing is we're just looking for every good redemption story, great um, anything that will help us to be more intentional in our walk with Christ, but also intentional guy is also about being intentionally being a man,
Yeah,
and
totally.
finding the things that will make us be a great husband, a great father, a great man in the community, and not be weak in what we do, but be strong in what we do.
Yeah, love
So,
that.
I was looking over Erik's podcast, and I really enjoyed it. I like a lot of the speakers that you have because they address a lot of that type of issues and things with it. So I think we're a really good match on that. But I'm tell you what, I'm not going to take up a lot of time. My viewers, they know me.
Yeah,
I would like them to know you. We'd love to hear some of your story and how that has related to your relationship with Christ.
yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I started out where growing up in a, small town, Eastern Washington city called Tri-Cities, or Kennewick is the actual city I was in there. But, typical childhood. Went to Sunday school, played Little League. My best friend Dave and I would get tossed literally in dumpsters behind big stores by my dad on the weekends. He said, "Go find treasure." Like it was just like that was our thing. He'd drive up behind big stores like furniture stores. They literally throw us in dumpsters. And so I had this fun childhood. And then my parents though got divorced when I was 11 years old. I didn't know that word. I'd never heard that word. I didn't know anybody who had gotten a divorce, and it was kind of a shock to my system. And so when that happened, my mom got together with a guy who was very physically abusive almost immediately. And I
Mhm.
didn't understand why she decided to stay. I mean, the cops were always coming to our house. She would never press charges, and he would just continue to do the same old thing. And then she got pregnant, and they decided to move myself, my sister, who's 4 years younger than me, and then new baby born, baby, up to Stevensville, Montana. It was population 1,200 people, 5 acres, rented this house on this property, beautiful property, man, like on the pond, like 2 ponds right by the Bitterroot River. Amazing property up there. The problem was that house had 3 bedrooms. It was one for them, one for my little brother, who's a couple months old at the time, one for my sister. They said, Erik, you to live in the garage. And I literally had half the garage with a plastic tarp down the middle. And I had my bed on one side. Luckily, that side had the fireplace on it. And so that was my room. I was put out in this room, and some of the winters pretty it sucked, man. It was pretty cold during the
I
winters up there in
imagine.
Montana at the time, right? But the abuse didn't stop. In fact, it got worse because we were further away from police. And so I remember the one night that really, I would say, set me on a path of destruction for the next 10 years of my life is, brushing my teeth. One night they came home arguing, wasn't anything different than any other night. But as I brushed my teeth, I felt like God was saying, dude, you got to turn around. You got to see what is happening. And so the way the house was set up was behind me was the kitchen to the pantry to the garage where my room was at. And as I turned around, I saw him on top of my mom, just boom, 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 one shot after the other. And so I went up behind him and I grabbed a cast iron pan. I swung as hard as I could and I split the back of his head open. And as he turned around, he said, "What?" And as he did that, I smacked him again in the forehead, split his face open, lots of blood. And in that moment, I had slipped and fell. And I remember him standing up over me and he was yelling, and blood was coming down his face. My mom jumps up, lands like 6 punches in a row, blood splatting on the wall. Cops show up, take him to jail. I kind of feel like I'm this hero guy, but instead, I got kicked out of the house. So I had 3 months left in my freshman year of high school and went and lived with my buddy Forrest on his hardwood floor. I'd slept on that floor and we'd walk to school. And like I said, that set me on a path of destruction for the next 10 years where I battled addictions of drugs and alcohol. I was in jail at 18. I got kicked out of my dad's house 2 weeks after I graduated high school and basically became a homeless person for between ages of 18 and 21. I moved 21 different times and living off of credit cards, make a move to Seattle with $100 in my pocket. End up filing bankruptcy at 21. I was $28,000 in debt and landed this job with Universal Records. It was a dream job of mine to be in the music business. I don't know how to play anything, but I wanted to be involved in it, and land this job with Universal Records. Didn't help my addictions because I was going to 2 to 3 concerts a week, open bar every time I was there, hanging out backstage with rock stars and doing rock star crap, you know. And then there was a moment where during the Napster days, if people remember that, I got laid off
Yes.
along with half of the other, people in my office. And I went into this kind of depression. I was working at Starbucks at night, and I would get off work and I'd go grab a 6-pack of beer and go back to my ghetto apartment and drink myself to sleep every night. That was my typical daily routine. And one night, this girl walked in to Starbucks, doesn't drink coffee, and said, "Hey, would you like to go to this church event we have down at our church? It's a college age event." It was, and I said, "I'm depressed. I have no friends. She's good looking. What time do I need to be there?" Like, that was what was going through my head.
Right.
And I got down there and ended up running into guys that I had met 5-6 years earlier. And it was like, whoa, what are you doing here, man? I haven't seen you in forever. And I believe that was the moment that God started to really plant the seed in my heart. Like, dude, you're going down a real dark path right now. And it was a month later, it was Easter 2004. I was managing a band. We went out and partied. I woke up Easter morning in my buddy's basement, surrounded by probably 15 people. And I felt God say, dude, you're going down this path that's going to end your life real quick if you don't make some changes. And I decided in that moment to give my life to Christ. I gave my life to Christ right there in my buddy's basement, quit cold turkey, drugs, drinking, cigarettes, everything in that moment. And I called that girl up and I said, hey, thank you for inviting me to that church event. I got her voicemail. Maybe I'll see you at the store sometime. Well, a month later, we were dating, and now we've been married for 17 plus years. And man, it's been a journey to get, just in my marriage, because we both came from broken homes. We knew exactly what we didn't want in marriage, but we also brought a lot of junk with us that we had to kind of work through. But man, that's the path that I'm on right now.
Right. Wow. And that's a tremendous story, first off, because a lot of times we will allow, I don't know what it is that makes you got two different types of people. You got some people who they will allow all that crud in their life to either just destroy them and I make their identity, and they get paralyzed and do nothing. And then you've got some who will take that
Yeah.
and they will rise above it and fight to get something better,
Yeah. I think once I realized that my past and other people's opinions didn't define my future, that's when the door opened up. That's when I was able to sit back and go, okay, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm ready to start making some changes. The way I did that was I had to change my environment, right? So I got out of the party scene and I started interviewing guys. Now looking back, I was definitely interviewing them, but like, almost the pre-podcast days, I'd go find guys in the church that were living the life that I wanted to live. They had great marriages, they had great businesses, they had great walks with Christ. And I would take them out to coffee and say, man, tell me your story. What are you doing today to live the life that you are doing right now? And that's how I ended up just walking away and really having no compulsion to go back to alcohol or drugs or anything like that. So, I mean, I had to change that environment to get where I'm at.
Well, that's perfect because that's where I found myself at. I started looking at some men in the church who I loved how I loved what kind of father they were. I
Yeah.
love what kind of husband they were, and I wanted that to be that. So I wanted to rub elbows with them. And I'll be honest now, uh, I've been on a 15-year journey here, and that was a pivotal moment for me, getting the right people in my life
Yep.
and surrounding myself with them because I didn't realize how angry and bitter of a person I was
Yeah.
until I started making the changes that were needed. And you know, I don't know how I, I like what you said though. You found those guys and you went to them and did it. One of the big things I'm big about is being proactive in your journey.
Yeah.
A lot of people just sit back and I was one of those who catastrophized everything in my life. I Nobody had it worse than Mike Chestnut. I was just the worst of the worst, right?
Sure.
And if something bad was going to happen to me, it was going to happen to me. Well, then I realized, once I started taking this journey and I started talking to these other men, that they fought a lot of the same battles I fought, but
Yeah.
it was their attitude into it. One of the problems I had was I reacted to situations,
Mm.
which reactions is you're going off your feelings, right? You're going
Yeah.
off of emotions and stuff like that.
Totally.
And what I noticed with these guys were they were in charge of their life. They took when something came their way, they took action into it. And what I mean by action was like they were like, okay, let's find out what is this problem really about? Because sometimes the problems aren't really what they look like on the surface. It could be something else, right?
Yep.
But they would look at it and then they would make an action plan of what can I do? And sometimes it was some of the action plans were just simple. And I think that's the key. Everybody thinks you got to go in it right at this. Sometimes just doing something will help make it better, you know?
Absolutely. Massive action and a lot of gratitude. For me, I wake up 4 a.m. 6 days a week, man. And when I wake up, though, the first thought that goes to my mind is, Lord, thank you for another day that I get to see and hug and hold my family. Immediately. It's a goal of mine to wake up every day, right? So I'm already
Right.
accomplishing my first goal. Then I jump out of bed and I make my bed. There's 2 wins in 15 seconds. So for me, I'm already stacking wins. And I think that's the way that we get away from that kind of victim mentality as we start having gratitude of, man, where are we at today? God's blessed me with a roof over my head. I've got food. I've got people in my life that care. There might be some people that don't care, but you've got maybe 1 or 2 people that just really, truly love you. And I think that's if we can wake up each day with that attitude and have this attitude that, man, how can I help someone today? It's a goal of mine to put a smile on someone's face every day, whether that's in person or virtually. And if I can just do that every day, that's what drives me to be successful in the day.
That's awesome. One thing I was talking to you about before we came on air was the identity situation.
Yeah.
I allowed a lot of failure in my life, things that I'm not proud of.
Mm.
And, you talked about addictions and stuff, and it's very easy. I have a lot of listeners who have fought addiction and stuff like that. And one of the things that can happen to us with addiction is that becomes our identity,
Yeah.
and to me, I see a cocoon and I let that all just wrap around me. Been divorced. I've been addicted to this. I did this. And seems like the enemy I was collecting all these bad things that happened in my
Mhm.
life. And that labeled me and I allowed it to label me. That's the big thing. I allowed it to label me. And it's so when you've got that all around you, you're going to be nothing but a defeated person because
Yes.
that's all that failure is doing is defeating if it's your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been on a long journey unwrapping that and finding out who Christ is. But one of the best questions that happened to me was 15 years ago was a friend asking me, Mike, when God looks at you, what do you think he sees?
Mm.
And wow, for me, it was a horrible person.
Sure.
I couldn't see how could God look at me any other way because he knows what I've done. He knows who I am. Now, 15 minutes later, fast forward here. Thank God for some things that's happened in my life to get me there. I've written a book called Exposed, and
Mm.
it's called Exposed because my biggest fear was I would be exposed.
Sure.
And God said, okay, so we're going to handle this. You're going to expose yourself. And I'm like, deer in headlights. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't something I wanted to do.
Totally. Yeah.
But I found out once I put light on the subject, once I started dealing with the things, all those things that once I were my identity are far from me
Yeah.
and are not a part of me. And I wanted to know, ask you in your walk if that was something similar to you. How did how do you view yourself? How do you fight past some of the hardships that you came up growing up and make it to be the man you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are all given labels, right? Whether they're given to ourselves or other people gave us labels. And so if we allow those to stick on us, right, and stay with us, then it can keep us in that victim mentality. And I think once we surround ourselves with people that are living the life that we want to live, and we really start spending time in prayer and worship, and part of my daily routine is, when I get upstairs to my office, I turn on worship music and get into prayer immediately. That's kind of what helps my day start off fresh, right? And my prayer is very gratitude driven. But I think if we can release those labels, right? I know that once I gave my life to Christ and I started going down this new adventure, this new experience of being sober, being around people that were living life that I wanted to live, newly married, going through that, I did feel this anger. I started to put those labels on me, this victim mentality. Like I'm just this guy who came from a family that has nothing to do with, they're not a successful family financially, right? Like I come from a great family outside of my mom and dad sometimes, um,
Right.
but like my grandma is an amazing person, things like that. Like she always spoke life into me. She's been the prayer warrior. She's actually staying with us now. She'll be 88 on Monday,
Oh, wow.
and just a powerful woman. And I've been so blessed to do that. But the labels that she gave me was like, man, you're strong, you're powerful, you can beat this, you can do anything that you want, right? Those type of labels is what really sunk in with me, So, but there was a while though, when I gave my life to Christ, that I was kind of living that victim mentality. I went to counseling and I had to talk it out. I'd never talked about my life before. There was a lot of booger crying that happened. I didn't
Yes.
understand what was going on. Um, but I think once I really came to the realization, again, once my past, or I realized that my past and other people's opinions don't define my future, and I have this very strong relationship with Christ, and I'm gonna mess up. I'm a sinner, just like everybody else. But it's through God's
Yes.
grace and mercy that I'm still here today. And once I let that sink in, man, I just dropped all those other labels and knew that the label that I had from God was just that I'm loved and that He cares for me. And that, yes, I'm going to sin, but He still brings me back on the track.
Yeah. Well, I like that. One of my passions is, I I was my one of my passions is helping people who are defeated,
Yeah.
because I I was so defeated. And one of the things that why I like having guests like you on and things like this is because growing up, I grew up in a pastor's home.
Mm,
And I saw other pastors fall, preachers fall, men fall, and I never saw with inside of the church um, restoration, you know. And what I saw instead was the opposite of restoration. Now there
sure.
were sometimes I saw someone restored, but you know, that was a guy who he was an alcoholic maybe, but he got saved and now blah blah blah. But never someone who was already a Christian, fell into sin, and what happened was, okay, we no longer can have fellowship with you because of that sin and what have you. And that scared me. So when I went through the stuff that I did, I never saw where someone was brought to restoration. So to be honest with you, I didn't know that it that it was possible.
Yeah.
And
And,
that's what paralyzed me.
and I think when you go through situations like that, and even myself, being in situations where I was in, and there was a lot of crap that I did before I knew the Lord that I'm ashamed of for sure. And I think when it comes to forgiveness, the hardest person to forgive is ourself. And
Yes.
that's a huge battle. And there's even times now where, Satan likes to throw that little thought in our head, like, you're not worthy of that. Remember that crap that you did? Remember that? Remember that? Like, if we can just sit back and go, man, I am forgiven. If I can forgive myself, that's the hardest thing, man. If we can get through that and just know that God has given us grace and mercy and has forgiven us, man, that's what helps us continue to move on. And yeah, the church can be hurtful a lot of times. There's churches out there. There's a lot of judgment that happens in churches, man. And I've seen that. And you know, I've surrounded myself with guys that have the same belief as me, that it's not my job to judge anyone. My job is just to love you where you're at. I don't care who you voted for, what you're doing with your
Yeah.
life. If you're not hurting yourself or hurting others, my job is just to love you where you're at. And you know what? If they come to know the Lord through me, awesome. If they have questions, awesome. I'm here, but it's not my job to push, Jesus on them. Hopefully, they just see Jesus in what I do and in my actions.
Yes. I love that. And I'm part of this podcast is just about I'm going to be honest, I learned something through what happened to me because I was in ministry, and as a pastor kid, a lot of times it's very easy to live for other people,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like the social media that we have now. A lot of people, you can be what you know on Facebook. You've got this perfect life, but behind there you don't, right?
Yep.
Well, I was social media before social media was ever created. Okay. And as a pastor kid, I was raised so much on what people think about you and how that is. And one of the things in my journey was a minister of mine, a friend of mine, Michael Collins. He said, "I want to teach you what it means to be an authentic man of God, what it means
Yeah.
to be real, to be authentic." And that was one of the best gifts he gave me. So today I'm going to be authentic with you for a moment. Yesterday and this morning, um, defeated,
Mm.
defeated over one
Yeah.
person who and my wife last night, what's wrong, what's going on, and I'm like, oh, I'm good, I'm good, and I should have talked with her to release the lie, because sometimes we'll listen to that lie of the enemy way before we listen to the lie of God. I mean, to the truth of God, right?
Yeah.
And I yesterday I allowed someone to do what I said I wouldn't. God took that shame and guilt. I can. I was sitting in my counselor's office. She said, let's get it fixed today." And I remember I took that shame and guilt and put it off. And she gave me great advice. She said, "Don't let yourself or anybody else pick up what God has removed from you."
Oh, that's
You
so
know,
good, man. So good,
and
dude.
it is. And yesterday, I'm just going to be honest with you. Today, I'm a little defeated because I allowed someone to let me pick up that shame and guilt for the first
Mm.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I'm not on my A game today because I feel that shame and guilt. As I'm talking to you, I'm gaining a little bit more strength
Come
because
on.
I'm like, this is what my passion is about.
Yeah.
And for my viewers, I want you to know it's real, because the enemy he wants you to pick up that shame and guilt,
Yeah.
because then he can defeat you and he can keep you from doing the mission God has called you to do.
Mhm.
And for me right now, that mission is this podcast, bringing some guys like you on here that can give us hope where someone may not be feeling hope, you know?
Yeah.
And and listen, not every day you're going to get up and you're going to feel like, I don't know the right way to say it. I
Yeah.
don't think this is the right way to say it, but sometimes you'll get up and you don't feel safe. Sometimes you get up and you feel like you do feel defeated for
Mhm.
whatever reason.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
God, that is not God. God wants us to be a victor, like you said. He
Yeah.
doesn't want us to be a victim. He wants us uh and I keep going back to what she said. Don't let yourself or anyone else pick up what God's removed from you. And if I
Man.
could encourage anybody with that today, that's the word God's given me today is, and I'm feeling it as I'm talking about, because here's the thing. And this I grew up where some people did not like counselors. They felt like if you went to a counselor, it was wrong.
Sure.
And let me tell you, there's a lot of bad counselors out there too. I went to some counselors that were just crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
but God brought me a great counselor, and let me tell you, it was through that counselor that I was able to find that freedom again. And I feel that coming off, because what I feel sometimes you got to have a buddy. To me, I'm all about accountability and it's about having friendships that I
Yes.
can be real and authentic with, that I can go to and say, "Hey, this is what happened." And I've got my best friends coming over tonight, and me and him are going to discuss this, what happened.
Right.
Because when you can share light on it and throw light on it, it takes the sting and the power that the enemy is trying to use away from
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
Have
Oh,
you
absolutely.
have you experienced that within your walk?
Yeah, I mean, there's like I said, there's moments, there's days when, you know, I don't know if I believe in a bad day, but I believe in bad moments, right? So like we can have a bad moment. We stub our pinky toe on the
Right.
desk, right? Or we have Satan speaking lies into our life, saying, "Man, remember that moment, remember that moment."
Yep.
Those are bad moments. And I think if we can realize that they're just bad moments, not a bad day, right? Get over it, and we can actually change that day, and we can change the attitude. It's how we approach those things, right? Um, and I think anytime that we're feeling down, or anytime that we're feeling lost, or like in that victim mentality, my suggestion is go find somebody that you can help, and go. And I'm
Yes.
talking, give your time, give financially, give praise, write them a note, whatever it is, because it's impossible to make someone else feel great and go and give someone awesomeness, like help somebody out, and then you feel bad.
Yes.
Like, you just don't feel bad when you're helping other people. So if you're in this bad
Right.
mood, right, go find somebody that you can help, encourage somebody, call someone up, say, man, someone you haven't talked to for a while, dude, you are awesome. I love you, brother. You're doing amazing things. That's going to lift your spirit, just helping other people. And so there are those moments when I experience that, but I immediately, I've done a pretty good job of immediately going, all right, God, I know this is not from you. I know that you've called me to help encourage and love on people. I'm just going to call somebody right now. I'm going to shoot them a quick video.
Awesome.
I tend to pull my phone out and do a lot of like 30-second videos for my buddies each week. And I'll just send them a
That's
video of
awesome.
just like, man, you're doing awesome. I'll so appreciate being in my life. And I think if I can send those out to folks, that helps me feel good, but hopefully it encourages them to do awesome things too.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're called to do, you know?
Yeah.
It is to be outside of ourselves. I mean, Christ served when he was
Yes.
here on earth. He
Yeah.
served, you know? But I think the biggest part of it is a lot of people have to learn to be proactive in your own life. You've
Mm,
got to be proactive. What I'm hearing from you
yeah.
is you you're not allowing yourself when those bad moments come, because the bad moments are going to come. We got to be realistic.
Totally.
Those are
Yep.
going to come.
Yep.
But it's what you do with those bad moments that matter,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I heard John Maxwell say one time, he's like, look, God's put me on this earth to hang around with people that are not Christians. I get to hang around with Christians all day long once I get to eternity. But my job here is just to love people where they're at. It doesn't matter if they're Christian or not. I'm just here to love people where they're at. And I think if we can all have that attitude of like, it's not my job to judge you, but I'll love you where you're at. As long as you're not hurting yourself and hurting others, I just want to love you where you're at.
Yeah. And I want to speak to someone who's listening to us right now. And I know because I received a couple letters, and maybe you can help me as I talk to some of these guys. They're in situation, and there's ladies too. So it's not just men.
Yeah.
I have, I started this ministry trying to help other men, and now I see it crosses gender line. There's a lot of women who are watching this and listening, and I get these letters of where they feel stuck, and they feel, um, you know, that they're in a bad marriage, they're in a bad relationship, and they don't know what to do. And some of them I've actually helped them. It's been the church, where
Mhm.
the church has given them some bad advice, and
Sure.
I'm like, hey, let me help you find a good church in your area where you're at. And I talked to one of them already, and they're like, man, that made the difference. That just made
Yeah.
the difference. And they're seeing the freedom. And I believe a lot of time it once again, going back to something you said, it choosing the right people to have in your life,
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with people that will help make you better and things like that. But let's talking to someone there right now that's feeling defeated today. Maybe they're in a bad situation. They're in some of this stuff. What's some advice that you would give them?
Man, you know, one, I would say, listen, you're strong, you're powerful, and you've been called to break the chains of addiction, abuse, rejection, and anything else that has been labeled on you that God has not given you, right? So if you're labeled as a druggie, or labeled as a homeless person, or labeled as someone who you can't be trusted or whatnot, right? Like, drop those labels, realize that you have been put on this earth to change the world. You have a plan on your life from God, and you are strong enough to get through it. And if you're in a situation where you are feeling attacked, or you're the victim of whatever it is, right? If you're in an environment that's not healthy and safe for you, you can do this. You can get away from that. You have to find the strength. You have to dig deep to find it, and spend some time in prayer. But God will get you out of those situations. You have to take some action, right? You have to have it on your heart to say, man, I want to change the way things are. And then you have to get out of that environment. Sometimes it takes moving across a state or to another state to get there, but you have to take the action to do it. My wife and I, we moved to Idaho in 2014. We got away from some toxic people, And we knew that it would be better for our family if we could make this move. We didn't know anybody when we moved to Idaho. We just said, we're getting out of the situation that we're in. We're going on this adventure. We felt God was calling us to go to Idaho. And man, it was life changing for us. My kids have been here the majority of their life now. But we felt God saying, man, you got to get out of this environment. If you want to change things, you got to make a change. You got to take action. And so once we did that, that's what happened. So if you're in those situations, if you're around toxic people and you feel like you can't get out, you're in an abusive relationship, can't get out, you have the power and the strength to do that. And I'm believing in you. You need to believe in yourself, and you need to go find people that are living the life that you want to live and get there. Find a way to surround yourself with them. Just being in their presence is going to lift you up and motivate you.
Yes, man, I love that. That's exactly a great message for that. And finding that strength. Yeah, it's going to be difficult,
Yeah.
and it's going to be scary as all get out to
Yep.
do. But the payoff is unreal. The
Absolutely.
payoff is great because you're going to find a new freedom, but also you're going to find a newer relationship with Christ because you're going to see Christ working all around you that you can't ignore it. The one thing that is for certain, if you do nothing, you're going to absolutely reap nothing, you
Yes.
know?
Yep.
And so it is so important to push forward and to find the strength um, to do what needs to be done in your life. And the truth is too, we can give you advice, but I have one friend who was in a toxic relationship, and I had to keep telling him, listen, I'm not God. I can't tell you what to do,
Yeah.
but it seems like God's answering uh, your questions and your prayers, but you're not liking the answers He's giving you.
Come on.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's you're not going to like what God tells you He wants you to do because God's way is not our way. And let's be honest, our way is not working,
Totally.
you know?
Totally.
So, so be, you're going to have to be adventurous a little bit to do that. So,
Yeah.
Eric, I really appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, here's the deal. It's in its simplest form. Nothing changes unless nothing changes, right? Like nothing will change in your life unless you go out and make some changes. So you got to make a change. You got to get uncomfortable. It's gonna suck, like you said. You're gonna run into issues. You're gonna run into problems. You're gonna run into fear. Break through those, though. You have the power and the strength to do that, and you can make a change in your life. Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So
Yep. And I just want to encourage you too to see it through to the end because
yeah.
a lot of people, when they quit right before the reward is around the
Oh,
corner.
yes.
And man,
Yes.
don't once you start the journey, finish it because the the enemy, he's going to fight you the hardest right before the turn and the change happens. And I've seen so many people quit right before they were to reap the reward of it. But
Yeah.
if you'll be faithful, God's going to be faithful back to you,
Come on. Yes.
you
There's
know?
an awesome book by Dr. Greg Reed called 3 Feet from Gold. And he
Mm.
talks exactly about that, man. You know, turning away from that and like that goal right before because it got tough, right? But you're this close to accomplishing that thing,
Yes.
man. But yeah, I would definitely recommend go checking out that book.
And there were so many times that that I almost was there because and a lot of people are this way. When we hurt, we want to isolate from the world. We want to isolate from this and that.
Yeah.
And uh, I had to learn not to do that because
Mhm.
it was self defeating. And I'm going to tell you, the payoff has been huge in my life. I have a great family. I went from someone who lost literally everything in his life
Mm.
to someone who now is their family is shining. Our family is growing. We've turned the tide in the last 2-3 years here, where yes, it was a struggle to get past, and the truth is get past the problems we created
Sure.
ourselves, you
Totally.
know,
Yep.
and but we had to get past those hurdles. But the reward now, we are reaping the rewards right now that are so uh, above what we thought we would ever hope for or see, you
Mm.
know? And the
Yep.
truth is, it's not even, and we haven't even hit the tip of it yet, you
Yeah.
know? So now our goal is now that we've gotten to this, is to continue to be faithful, continue to protect ourselves, continue to use those steps that God, and trust the process that God's laying before you,
Mm.
because it is a process. Because what's important with processes is you learn,
Yes.
and and you're going to learn so much valuable things. And what I like about what you said is now you can turn it around. Once you get to this process, you have something more to offer other people now.
Yeah.
And now you can turn around, like you said, got the bad moments, you got the that happen, go help somebody else. Go use what God's done in your life now to make the enemy, what he's saying in your ear right now, a lie.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and that ministered to me, because that's where I'm going to be today. Now I need to
Mm.
go minister, turn that lie that the enemy gave me yesterday, and do something about it, turn it around, bless somebody else, show the enemy, no, I'm not picking up what God took
Come
from
on.
me today.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I love that. Hey, Eric, I want to take a few moments though and ask you to tell us a little bit about the work you're doing. I know you got a great podcast, stuff like that. I've actually listened to several of your podcasts, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about that too?
Yeah, awesome. I've been podcasting since 2017. I've done a little over 400 episodes between two different shows that I had at one point, and stopped the second one at the end of 2021, and just focus on the Eric Allen Show. And it's where I talk with world changers, success-minded people, and entrepreneurs. And been blessed to speak with guys like Ed Milet and Tim Story and Brad Lee and Bedges Coyne and David Meltzer and Jim the Rookie Morris, who's become a good friend of mine. Like, these guys are world changers, and just been blessed to speak to some truly amazing people. My goal is just to encourage people and share those stories of, life lessons that these guys had to take action to get to where they're at. They've all failed. I mean, you talk about David Meltzer, lost $100 million, had to go, basically live in this tiny apartment, and then he's built himself back up. And the movie Jerry Maguire was basically based off of his sports agency. So I mean, crazy stories like that. And I love to be able to share that with people. So I do that. The podcast drops every Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific. I'm also a podcast coach. So anybody looking to start, run, launch a podcast, I do live coaching, but I also just launched a self-service course. It's 28 videos that I recorded. And so that thing runs actually through the end of July, or through the end of June. We're running it for 197 intro special. So it's going to be pretty rad. We're already getting a lot of great feedback from that. We also have a podcast booking service. So if you're looking to get booked on podcasts, me and my team put you on, shows. If there's a good fit between you and the host, then we line you up and we make that happen. But yeah, so then I'm doing that. And I'm also in the process of getting certified as a John Maxwell speaker and coach. My
Wow.
job is, I really want to just encourage people and be out there and be able to speak and just love on people and guide people through that. So by August of this year, I'll be fully certified as a speaker and coach through John Maxwell.
That's awesome. That is great. And I want to encourage my listeners to go check this out. Uh, Once again, it goes back to you. What you pour into yourself is what you get out, right?
Yes.
And so, what happened to me? Back in the political, when Trump era here, I was on listening to all these podcasts and political and stuff like that. And I was just an angry, bitter person. I was coming home and
Yeah.
it was following me, because let's just be honest, there was nothing good said. Okay. There was
Nothing.
nothing. Everything was negative, all this stuff. And I was just an angry person. And then one day, once this intentional guy, God realized to me, why are you listening to this stuff?
Yeah.
You coming,
Come on.
because now you're coming home and you're not pouring into your family, because you're festering all this negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, because I was a salesperson at the time, I was in my car 6 hours a day. And then I started finding podcasts out there that were good. I started off with Stephen Furtick, because I like Stephen Furtick
Oh, huge fan of that guy, man.
messages.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started listening to that, and it was a life changer for me. But then that was every Monday I listened to that. But now I got 4 other days during the week. What am I going to
Sure.
listen to? And
Yeah.
so I started seeking out podcasts like yours and stuff like that to listen to. And that's why I want to encourage people to go check yours out and listen to it, because I'm a big component of get rid of the negative stuff that's in your life and replace it with some good stuff. So I listen daily to other podcasts while I'm working because I want to, and I get to choose what I listen to and who I listen to, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so I am very intentional in going out there and finding stuff that's going to make me a better person. And so I want to really encourage some of my audience, go check out your podcast. We're going to put them in the link here and all that, and find encouragement in these other, because I love the people that you're interviewing. You can't have success without failure. You know,
Yeah.
failure is a
Absolutely.
part of everyday. That's everybody's. You can't get away without having failures. But what I like is that what these men have done with their failures and how they've turned them into success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's nothing different about them and us than attitude.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wanted to just comment real quick on when you were saying that the news was filled with negativity, and it is so true. They have their own agenda. And one thing that I just love to tell people is like, turn off the news, man. Like I turned off the news probably 6 years ago. And as soon as I did that, man, I felt happier. I was walking around going,
Yep.
woo, man. Like, because you're just filled with negativity. Now you're going to see some stuff on social media. That's how I see my news. I see it mostly in memes, but like I catch some of it, but for the most part of news, I have no idea what's going on. I know that in
Yep.
my life, my job is just to focus on me and my family and making an impact where I can. But if I can just
Yep.
turn off the news and get away from that as much as possible, man, it just lightens up your spirit, man. It's all they have their own agenda, and my job is just to love
Yep.
people where they're at and turn off the news, man. That'll
And
make you happy.
that was a life changer for me because that was me. And where it happened was I was fighting with people on Facebook that I
Right.
don't even know. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
is this who you want to be? And
Oh,
I had let me tell you, I had a good friend not a good friend. It was someone, they're a good friend now, but they were just an acquaintance at church
sure.
that called me out on it one day and said, why are you engaging in this? You
Yeah.
know? And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, why am I engaging in this? You know? And that was a life changer for me because I, you know what? I want to do what I've been called to do, and that is to lift other people up, to share who Christ is, and to share it in my life. And I like what you said too. A lot of times, sharing Christ is just how you live.
Yeah.
That is more life changing for the people that I work with and around, is if they can see who I am and how see the joy that God has given me in my life.
Mm.
That that speaks volumes. Uh, we're in Pensacola, and not to offend anyone that likes doing this, but we have a lot of street preachers out here, and they will just scream and at it, and
Oh gosh.
I've had so many people because of it who've tried to like offer them water when it's hot out or something like that, and them just they wouldn't take the water, just kept, you're going to hell, and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to condemn them and stuff like that, but let me tell you, I've learned that, man, Christ didn't come to condemn the world, but that the world would be saved through him.
Come on.
And I'm not here to condemn anybody. I have no authority to condemn anybody.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I do have the power of Christ in me to help others and to reach them. And I love what you said in there. To recap a little bit of what you said today, man, go out there today, tomorrow, every day, wake up. How are you going to influence someone for the kingdom of God? How are you going to influence somebody else? Because let me tell you, like you said, you're not going to have time to be in your self sorrow, your self pity when you're helping somebody else out. And
Mm.
so I just wanted to recap. That was some great stuff. Great stuff. So, well, Erik, thank you so much for being on our show today, for having this conversation. If not for anybody else, it was for me. I needed it today. I needed that uplift. And we're gonna get your links in the descriptions here, so everybody can go look at them and see them. But I just want to say thank you. Any last words you want to say before we sign off?
Oh man, truly an honor to be here. I appreciate it and love what you're doing. You are furthering the kingdom of Jesus, man, just with this show and your story and your book. I mean, you're an absolute world changer. So I just want to encourage you in that. Like, you took the step to do this podcast. You took the step to expose yourself in your
Yep.
book, right, of your story, and you're
Right.
changing the world through that, man. So I just want to encourage you, man. You're doing awesome things. This is a great show. I've did 117 interviews in 2021, and this is
Wow.
one of my favorites, man. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And all my listeners out there, until next time, just keep being intentional.
Hmm.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.